Medicare for All plan that abolishes private insurance, Biden and Buttigieg are offering Medicare for all who want it, claiming people can keep their doctor, keep their private plan if they want to. But this is a false choice because according to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, introducing a public option would eventually destroy private health insurance. And Democrats know this. People would not be able to keep their private plan. With me now, educator and Democrat strategist Roosevelt Mitchell. Roosevelt, good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Roosevelt, there's a very interesting article in the Washington Post by Mark Thiessen that talks about what would happen, the slippery slope, if you offer a public option. So if you offer a public option, essentially the burden falls on private insurers. What ultimately happens, I'll actually read this part of his article. He says, as Seema Verma, head of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, has explained, the public option is a Trojan horse with single payer hiding inside. Verma points out that private insurance pays hospitals 75% more than Medicare for the same services. In 2017, for example, Medicare underpaid hospitals by $54 billion. They make up the lost revenue by charging private insurers more, which means private plans are essentially subsidizing Medicare for seniors. But if tens of millions of Americans under 65 sign up for a public option, the population requiring subsidies will expand dramatically, while the source of private revenue will dry up. To stay afloat, doctors and hospitals will have to charge even higher prices to private insurers, which in turn will force insurers to raise prices and reduce services, making it harder for them to compete with the government. For customers, a death spiral for private insurance will ensue. Roosevelt, do you agree?
Well, here's the thing, and it's funny that I read this article today because I was just talking to a friend early this morning, and she was, she's working class, and she was saying how she had to have knee surgery, and she used one of the Major League Baseball teams, doctors or whatever, and she couldn't even afford, off her salary, she couldn't even afford going to get therapy. So she had to cut her therapy short, which ended up ruining her other knee, and she had to have surgery on that one. So, this whole situation is layered because there's a lot of millions and millions of people who cannot even afford to get the treatment because of the prices are so high with private insurance, but yet and still, we have this system to where some people can afford it and some people can't.
Right.
So it's the way it's set up right now, and the private insurance will insurers and the doctors and all that would have to charge even more just to stay afloat. That doesn't sound well for the economy, but yet and still we have a lot of sick people.
Right.
So how can we
you and I actually agree, by the way, on the fact that we need to do something to improve the healthcare system in our country. Prices are too high, and there are people like your friend. I'm very sorry to hear about your friend, by the way. That's not an uncommon story where people can't afford certain aspects of healthcare, and insurance companies won't pay for it. And that's terrible. We should reform that. But given this analysis from the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, doesn't it seem like Biden's or Buttigieg's plan, which offers a public option while still having private insurance, doesn't that seem like it would exacerbate the very problem that you're talking about?
Well, we have heard that before, right? The then President Barack Obama came, and said the exact same thing, and then the guy who helped him write Obamacare, actually came out and said, right, exactly, that the lack of transparency, and his words was the lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And they cannot just come out and say that healthy people will pay in and sick people will get money. Obamacare would never pass. So they had to frame it and use different words and terminology just to get it passed, which was very, as some would say, unethical, if you will, in a system. And that Obamacare did not work. So for them to come out and say the same thing and don't offer an exact plan of how it will work, even though we have seen that it has not worked, is problematic to me. But I do want to give kudos to Warren and Biden for at least being honest and saying you won't be able to do it.
Right. So Warren and Bernie have said, yes, they're going to abolish private health insurance. And that's another problem. I obviously think it's a terrible idea. We've seen examples of why it's terrible. But yes, they're at least being honest and saying, under our plans, no, you won't have private insurance. What I'm saying, and I think what Mark Thiessen was arguing in his article in the Washington Post, is that Biden and Buttigieg are pretending that people would be able to have the private insurance. But truthfully, whether it's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, that's not going to be true. So he's saying they're dishonest. And I think we agree.
Right. Yeah, because we have never seen it happen. So show us that this can happen and everybody can benefit. But It has not happened. We've heard it before, and seeing is believing. So I just think that since I believe a couple of years ago it was 51% of people who actually supported the Medicare for All, but now it's down to like 37% according to some poll. So I think they're trying to actually come from far left to closer to the aisle on this one, but yet it's misleading because they have nothing to show that this will actually work and they can actually do it.
Right. In fact, they're repeating the same lie and then the same mistake of Obamacare to promise that people can keep their insurance and then lying about it when it's not true. We saw what happened under Obamacare. People's premiums and their deductibles skyrocketed. It was unaffordable. People hated that. That's why approval for it fell by so much. And now Biden and Buttigieg are doing the same thing. I'm not sure people are going to fall for it. Again, Roosevelt, thank you so much for your analysis. I appreciate it. When we come back, one final point about the left's impeachment lies.